Hello and welcome to my holiday gift guide. This is 12 sewing gift ideas plus one bonus at the end. If you are already into sewing or are trying to find presents to gift to someone who would like to be into sewing, this is the video for you. I've recently joined the YouTube shopping affiliate program, so I will link all the products in the video. I think it's down there. Number one is a sewing machine. It's fairly obvious. You can hand sew everything if you feel so inclined. I do not. This is my current machine. It is the Brother CS7000X. It is quite a good machine. I've been thoroughly enjoying using it. It does have one flaw though, which is a big problem for me. My very first sewing machine could stitch out little dogs as one of its computerized stitches, and this does not. But beyond that, I have really enjoyed working on this machine. It's got an automatic needle threader, which is fantastic, and a whole bunch of decorative stitches that do not include dogs. I forgot to say that one of the reasons why I recommend this for beginners is because it has a speed limiting slider. If you don't want it to go crazy fast, you just put it on turtle mode. Very helpful when you're just starting out. This is the machine that I teach on. My very first machine was the Singer Confidence Quilter. I don't even know if they make it anymore, but it lasted through 12 years of sewing, and the repair guy could not believe it was still working that long. I do recommend that one as well. It's way too hot, I'm sorry. You don't necessarily need a new sewing machine. You can get a good one at the thrift store, but it's not quite a guarantee. I have a whole pile of them, so I'm not bashing them, but you have to make sure that everything rotates freely and the timing is still correct, which is a correctable problem, but sometimes they do have problems that are not fixable. I currently have 19 sewing machines. Most of them are not new. I also usually have an embroidery machine, but it is currently at the repair shop. I will recommend though, if you ever want to get into embroidery and you think you're going to want to do more than just little tiny things, get a machine that does bigger than the 4x4, because that's going to get really annoying really fast when you want to do big stuff. My number two recommended gift for someone who's interested in sewing is an ergonomic seam ripper. This is the one, well, this is the second one of these that I've had. My puppy ate the first one. Before I got one of these guys, I used to think that the one that came into the machine was just fine, you know, the little cheap ones. After I lost it and I had to buy a nice one, I will never be going back. This is so comfortable. It also inspired the sweatshirt, which is my merch if you're interested in buying one. Links up in the description. You will find that you spend a lot more time with your seam ripper than you would like to admit to. This one is way sharper than the little free one. I also have bought another one because I keep losing this one, and technically I have another one of these hanging out waiting until I lose both of these. Number three on the list is good scissors. These guys are my personal favorite. They're the Fiskars Easy Action. I find that the spring action keeps my hands from getting too tired while I do a lot of cutting, which happens a lot because I make big ball gowns. It's also really important that you have sharp scissors, because if you try and cut a delicate fabric with dull scissors, it will ruin your whole day. I don't even want to get into it, but it's awful. I've also heard people raving about Ginger. I don't have any experience with them. They are expensive, but everyone says that they're worth the price. I would love to find out someday. My mother-in-law actually gifted these to me for Christmas a couple years ago, and I accidentally tried to cut through a pin. It ended as you would expect, and these are my new pair, because I like them enough to buy another pair. Tool number four is good marking tools. I tend to use these three. I have white tailor's chalk for dark fabrics. I have a black friction pen and also a purple friction pen for marking light colored fabrics, and I have my water-soluble purple marker, which is probably the one I use the most. They all have pluses and minuses. Like for instance, white chalk does not work on white fabric. They do make colors, but if say you're making your white wedding dress, you don't want to put colored chalk on it. So for my wedding dress, I did use the water-soluble marker. Well, it's air and water-soluble, so it doesn't last forever. So if you're going to be marking something and leaving it for a while, this is probably not your best option. And then we come to the friction pen, where you really need to test on a scrap piece of fabric before you use this on your good fabric, because occasionally it does leave a waxy residue that you can see. And some of them do come back in cold weather, and if you make frozen things out in the lake, that can be a problem. Number five on my list is pins. These come in many different varieties. Off the top of my head, I don't remember which kind I have, but I can figure it out later, so I will add it here. These ones have plastic heads, so you can't really iron over them, but you can get glass head pins if you need to iron over them. And then they have different thicknesses for the shaft. These are relatively thin, but these are not the most delicate ones. I know you can get thinner ones. I also have some more kid-friendly ones with less pointy tips and big heads on them. I do teach friends and kids how to sew sometimes, and I don't want to hand the kids very sharp, very pointy, tiny objects to lose, so I use the big pins for that. In addition to fabric scissors, I have item number 6, which is snips. These guys are very handy for doing small, delicate work, or when I'm rethreading a machine, or trimming off something tiny. I don't want to have the 7-inch scissor blade, I just want to have very pointy, sharp tip snips. Again, these are Fiskars. Again, gifted to me for Christmas by my amazing mother-in-law. I really need to buy a second pair because I lose them daily, hourly probably. And it would be handy if I had multiples around for when I lose them and need them. Idea number 7 is ironing supplies. Ironing is incredibly important when you're sewing. You may spend more time ironing than you do actually using the sewing machine. And it will make your seams look way more professional and less like a homemade garment. I have 2 Sunbeam irons. This one's currently got gunk on it, and this one I sew for my husband. They're perfectly fine for what I do. Someday I would love to have a gravity-fed steam iron. I don't know if it's ever gonna happen. It would be really cool. They are supposed to be way better than these home guys, but again, I don't have any experience with them. It was not hot, by the way. I haven't used it in a bit. You will also need something to iron on, and I happen to have the one I got when I moved into my first apartment. It's a little small, but for generally what I do, it's perfectly fine. If I do need to do a lot of ironing or really big things, I have a craft table with an ironing mat that goes on top of it. I think it's 36 by 50 or 60 inches, so it's big enough to hold most of my skirt panels for most of my giant dresses. I've looked into wool pressing mats, but before I could buy one, I found the iron tabletop topper for my craft table, so. If you don't have a ton of space and you don't want the teeny tiny tabletop one, oh my gosh. And you don't want the teeny tiny tabletop one, I would recommend getting a mat because then you can just roll it up and store it. Item number 8 is maybe a bit of an odd choice, but a mini vacuum cleaner. Do you ever cut minky, terry, velvet, glitter, sequins? Need I say more? Yes? Well, a tiny vacuum is great for mid-project cleanups, or if you cut velvet, and immediately your whole room is covered in blue fluff. I just grabbed one of my mini vacuums. There's actually 2 in this room. I don't know where the other one went. This one I generally use for cleaning up carpet or off my cutting mat, but the other one is a tiny nozzle which is good for cleaning inside of sewing machines or my serger. I found it. It's this one, and it's got a nozzle for really cleaning inside of my machines, which you should probably do every couple of months or month depending on how often you sew. Generally, I clean my machine out about every project, but my projects take kind of a while. Gift idea number 9 is a magnetic pin dish. This technically came from Home Depot. It's not a specifically sewing thing. However, it is incredibly handy. When you take pins out of projects, instead of having to carefully put the pin point down, when you put it in the pin cushion, you just toss it in the vague direction of the pin dish and it will land point side down. It's very handy when you have a dog who used to intentionally put her paws in my pin dish because she was trying to get my attention. She has yet to actually be stabbed by a pin, which I think is a pretty good record because she used to do this all the time. Drove me nuts. You do need to be careful with where you put these though, because my brother machine says specifically not to put magnets on the machine sewing area, which means I can't use a magnetic seam guide either, but I can do fun stitches, not the dog stitch. You just need to be careful about where you put this. I generally just put it in front of my machine. Idea number 10 is measuring stuff. I happen to have a lot because I do a lot of pattern drafting. The clear quilting rulers are handy for that. I also have a French curve somewhere. The ones I reach for most often are my actual ruler and this guy. I used to have a really cute one where this part was a sheep and you pulled the tail to get the measuring tape out of it, but it disappeared when Emmy was much younger, still into chewing on things. Anyway, you do need some sort of measuring device. It's for taking measurements, checking skirts, I don't know, checking seam allowance if you feel like it. You do need to be careful though, these do stretch out over time. So if you have a really old one, you should compare it to a measuring device that does not stretch or flex. Number 11 is a rotary cutter. You do need to be very careful with this. They are very sharp and sharp the whole way around. Exhibit A, sliced into several fingers multiple times. They're very handy when you're cutting delicate fabric or slippery fabric. You also want to give a set of replacement blades because these can get nicked pretty easily. I happen to have the Fiskars one, but any brand will do. You also need a cutting mat or something to cut against. I am not holding up my mat because mine is 24 by 36. So here is a picture of it. It's very handy to have a big one. You don't necessarily need a big one, but I find it very handy. Number 12 is a serger. These guys can be very intimidating. Threading them is rather complicated. They give your garments or bags or whatever you're making a very nice finished edge that doesn't unravel because it wraps thread around it. I received 2 Brother 1034Ds for Christmas one year from 2 different people, and instead of returning one, I just have one that's light thread and one that's dark thread. They're not very beginner friendly, but on a lot of computerized sewing machines you have a somewhat serged edge stitch that can still bind the edges a bit. I mean, I have sergers, so I don't use that stitch. I assume it's fine. And I'm going to give you a baker's dozen worth of sewing tools suggestions, because my personal favorite is the sewing assistant. We have a very sleepy Sky. Hi buddy, did I wake you up? Color and size may vary slightly, but it's always best to sew with quality control, checking your every move. And now that I've woken them up, I have to go take them for a walk. So that was my 12 sewing gift guide idea list, and I will see you guys in the next video where I will probably be sewing again. But again, I will link all the products below. I do get a small commission if you buy through my links, and maybe I'll use that to buy 3 more pairs of snips because they're very handy and I lose them all the time. Alright, bye everybody!